myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Ray. That is Friday. It is literally the three Amigos, like the old days. And some people saying you should have the three, just the three on once in a while. Well, here we are. Keith is on holiday and he is out for a meal. And due to the constant criticism he gets for eating meals on the show, he decided he's not going to come on. No, joking aside, he is on holiday.
By 7 o'clock, they'll be regretting it. They'll be gone.
Everybody deserves it. Everybody deserves a bit of time off. We hope you have a great time, Keith. I've got to start, sadly, with some tragic news. And this show tonight is going to be dedicated to Stu Flyboy Ray, who has sadly passed away. I want to thank Paul from Toon Review for giving us a text, and Rachel, of course, one of our mods who mods on here and on Toon Review as well, for messaging us. Paul just beat her to it. But I don't know the full circumstances. We were completely, unaware that Stu was struggling with any kind of ailment. I've got to be perfectly honest. But the text message that I received from Paul at 4 o'clock, or just after 4 o'clock today, says, "Hi Steve, hope you're well. I'm not sure if you know, but Stu Flyboy Ray has passed away. I know he loved your show as well and would always comment like he did on mine. Like I say, not sure if you know, mate, but it's awful news. He passed away after complications with a lung problem." Stu, wherever you are, God bless you, mate. Thank you for your support. We will always remember Bruce out in those dark, dark days of Ashley. Made me laugh every time, even when Bruce had long gone and the takeover had gone through. Bruce out was still ringing out in this chat. It'll be a miss. It'll be every bit a miss as Dave is, of course, who was part and parcel of the NUFC Matters community, and of course Chris A, who was part of the team and who we lost sadly during that awful time. So he's up there with all those other NUFC Matters legends from the chat. God bless you, mate, and our thoughts are with your family. I'm sure you guys would like to say something as well.
I just hate this. I hate this getting old shit. Is you lose people along the way, and you cannot put a finger on it. Sometimes you cannot even understand quite why. Like Chris said, just taken just like that. Somebody who I never always agreed with, but I used to love debating with him. And when you get to the place where we are, where we're so privileged to have so many connections within the fan base. And somebody that you're used to seeing in that chat and you're used to seeing around, and they disappear, it hurts. It hurts like a family member, and like everybody will lose along the way. It does hurt like losing a family member.
Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it's also, you get used to seeing the comments down the side, and you're sitting as you're doing the show, and you see the little slider that we have with the comments coming in, and you saw his comments, and they could be quite humorous. They were always on point, and it's little things like that, and that goes for many other people who follow the show. As we're doing the show, we're looking at the comments as well, and we're having a little giggle to ourselves, or we're having a bit of scratch of the chin and thinking, "Oh, that's interesting," and that's what he was about. As you say, part of the community, part of that community for me, part of what NUFC Matters is about. Just a really decent chap. Tragic news, completely blew us when you told us, Steve, and God rest his soul, and commiserations to his family and his friends. It must be a very, very difficult time for them all.
Yeah, Bruce out. Will be on a placard, says Andrew, at the pearly gates, and I think that's the way we'd all like to remember Stu. Didn't physically meet Stu. One of those, one of those in the chat who we got to know just through his comments. So thank you. I can see all the love coming in the chat tonight. Thank you very much for all your kind words, and I'm sure if there's any of Stu's family tuning in tonight, that they will take that on board. But thanks very much, Paul. Especially from Toon Review and Rachel for letting us know. Okay, the three amigos lasted 7 minutes because here is one of our favourite panelists. It is George. Good evening, George.
Hi. Good to see you, lads.
You've joined us a little bit late, George, but just to let you know that Stu Flyboy, you might have picked it up there from the chat, who one of the guys who's a regular in the chat, he's passed away, mate. So, it's sad news, tragic news.
I was all set, and all of a sudden I needed to call in nature, so
no problem, mate. Yeah, well, as I say, we're starting with some rather sad news about Stu passing away, so we will move on, and we will talk about Livramento. Now, the deal, I believe now, as we came on air, has now been agreed in principle, which is great news, Mitch. It's an interesting one, this, because ultimately Newcastle United have made a habit of a little bit of, shall we say, game management in transfers. Look over there while we do our business over here. We've talked about it on the show. Certainly feels like they've done that again with Livramento. Some people stirring it up on social media, some journalists, some fans trying to suggest that Howe's outburst at Rangers is the catalyst for this happening. This has been going on all along. Harvey Barnes has been a long-term fishing expedition. I think perhaps even Maddison might have been a bit of a red herring in this particular window, not in previous windows. And Livramento has been on the radar for the last few weeks. We've talked about it on the show, not to the great deal that we may have talked about others like Tierney, etc. But Livramento is an interesting one. What's your thoughts on it?
Comes back to something that I've banged on about for a long time: squad management, looking forward, looking at progressive moves, and where we're going to be in a couple of years' time. Where we're going to be, yes, we've got Ashby in from West Ham, but he's still quite young. And Trippier is, let's be honest, in the twilight of his career, and probably shouldn't be playing if we've got Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup. He shouldn't be in every game. That'd be the quickest way to burn him out in injury. And so we need plenty of cover in certain positions. Both Trippier and Livramento can play left back as well. So everybody getting the knickers in a twist about left full back and sort of chill a little bit there. But I still think maybe there's a surprise coming at left full back too. But we need to be looking not just for the now and the here and now in this season, and we don't need to be thinking about next season. We need to be thinking about seasons after that, and we need to be having quality players to create succession in certain positions on the pitch. It's quite clear. For me, the only risk with him is the fact he's coming back from a very nasty knee injury. But plenty of players have, and been in some cases more than the player that got injured, because while they've been away and while they've been rehabbed, they've understood how to look after themselves in different ways. And so I think it's a smart move. I think it's also taking advantage of picking quality individuals out of the teams that have been relegated. And again, it comes back to us being in a position of strength where we can go to teams and say, how do you need help? How can we help you? Because this might help us as well. I think it'd be a quality addition to the squad. But again, we then need to look at, we need to know what we're going to do with Kraft, because Howe still seems very keen on him, and he did nothing wrong until he got his injury. Manquillo, I think that it will hasten the exit door for him. I think he's been told pretty much he'd be allowed to go if it would create the right deal for it to happen. And so I think again, it comes back to the squad management issue. But if we can't trust Ashraf and Howe, even if they've had disagreements, even if there's been internal problems, which has been suggested, surely we've got the right people in place to make that all work out as well. And I think we would all attest that healthy disagreement isn't a bad thing. Look at the NUFC matters lot. We healthily disagree on quite a lot of things, and so and that doesn't turn out bad all the time. I think sometimes that's a good thing to have around the place, is to be able to create positive disruptions. So I think that's what Livramento would bring. His quality is undeniable, and so for me, yeah, makes sense.
Okay, George, it looks like this deal's almost done. Newcastle have been, scurrying about getting this one done over the last few weeks. Are you happy with Livramento coming in?
Yes, the bit I've seen of the lad, he always looked a talented player, and Neil's right. It's about not just about the now. He's you could label him one for the future as well. I'm not so worried about the injury thing now, because nowadays they have so many sports science people working on them and taking the stats and all the rest of them. They'd know if he was missing half a heartbeat, never mind half a yard. Gone are the days. Well, for example, going back to my day, we had a fullback who I played with as a schoolboy and as a youth, called George Dalton. George Dalton was headed for the England team. There's no doubt about that, till he got a severe knee injury, and he never recovered properly. Within months of coming back, he was out for about 6 months, and within another month, he was sold on to Brighton, and that was because he was a yard slower than when he played before the injury. That's not going to happen with a young man in this day and age. They'll have had in the gym and out on the field, the sports scientists around Southampton and our own, I suspect, will have had a look at all the statistics and said, well, he's fit. Let's go for it. It's not much of a chance, not much of a risk. So I'm quite pleased for the now, because he's another talented fullback, as Neil's already said, can play either side like Trippier, and important for me is he's a good crosser of a ball. What I've seen, the little I've seen of him, is that he's another fullback that knows how to get to the byline and swing it over, and that's desperately important for the likes of Wilson and Isak and all of the others. So no, I'm he's a good addition. I've got as to the healthy debate within the club, if there's been one, well, so there should be. We're not talking about pennies here. We're talking about an awful lot of money and people's futures. It isn't that simple. And if there's a healthy debate, well, okay. And if the healthy debate started by the manager, great. I couldn't be happier. I want my manager to manage the team. I don't want somebody up there telling him down there how to do things. And we've had some of that over the years, and it didn't work, and it never works. The manager needs to be the manager, as we've seen, and we've seen it work the other way. I mean, look at how Rafa managed the team against the idiot Ashley upstairs doing nothing. Who'll ever forget that interview with Rafa in January, halfway through the promotion season, where he was nearly begging to buy a player, and Ashley said absolutely nothing. You could feel the temper coming out of that screen from Rafa. Well, I hope that's Eddie Howe as well. He probably does it a little bit more quietly and without so much passion. But yeah, I want. So if there's been a debate, good. I'm happy for the debate, and yeah, let's take the ride that we look like we're going to get again, because I thought some of the stuff that we saw against Rangers was superb, and the input from that newcomer, Italian Tonali, is. I mean, I've been got my hair cut today, and even the ladies and the hairdressers were talking about this Italian. Makes you bloody sick. Sitting there, hearing them talk about this bloke from Italy. No, it's good. I'm looking forward to what's coming this way, and let's get on with it. Yeah, but the young fullback, yeah, happy as I could be.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I'm in the camp. I don't think there's been a discussion behind the scenes. I don't think at all Eddie Howe and Dan Ashworth have got any issues. I think there's been a very cunning plan behind the scenes. I think these guys certainly know what they're doing. I think they've proved it in previous windows as well. The club just won't have the pants taken down, and they're very good at putting out red herrings. And I think the players that have come in, the players that, well, they're certainly players that were on the original list. Again, it's only speculation on my behalf. It's a gut instinct that I get, but I think they're doing rather well. And anything that goes out there is carefully planned and carefully thought out. And I just think Newcastle are slowly chipping away at the list and getting these players that Eddie Howe wants. And I think if we can bring Livramento and Barnes in, I see Spenny's in the chat. He predicted that we'll probably get 2 in. I know Stu's been going on about it for the last couple of weeks that, we'll be getting a couple of players in quite quickly, which we have done. So, it's suddenly the transfer window is looking like a very productive one. And we have to remember that it's open until the 1st of September. And there will be outgoings. We do know Darlow's probably going to go sooner rather than later. Plenty of suitors for Darlow. Lots of talk potentially of, 1 or 2 others going out. So yeah, look, there's more business to be done. There'll be more youngsters coming in. Lewis Hall's been mentioned. I see there's a few people talking about him in the chat as well. But finishing off, Steve, on the Livramento situation. I mean, in our WhatsApp group, you stuck this in. That's why I wanted to start with this tonight. And you pointed to the fact that he had a rather bad injury, which he's had to recover from. That could be put down as a negative, I guess, for any incoming player. Is he ever going to be the same as he was, especially with the UCL? But what's your take on this deal? And lots of talk as well with this particular signing about, potentially, could play left back. Kieran Trippier in England games has played left back. There could be tactical switches in Champions League games and the like. So, the whole point is really, it's just a case of, I guess, sorting a squad out, building a squad to the point where hopefully in a couple of years' time we'll have two teams which could play equally as well as each other, like Man City have got. Absolutely,
yeah. I mean, the first thing to point out when everybody's saying, "Oh, he's a right back," but the lad is also a bit of a wing back. That's a position that he's played really well at. And you look at Trippier. I mean, as Mitch was speaking there, I just chatted down. He played 38 Premier League games last season. He started 8 cup games, 46 games in total for a 32-year-old. And so, yes, you're absolutely spot on, Mitch. We need someone to come in and take the load off him because, as you say, as you get older, those little knocks turn into something slightly more serious that keep you out for a couple of games. Little twinges turn into tears and things like that. And
there's no doubt he played games last season he shouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And then you look at Livramento and you go, yes, he's been out with an ACL. But one of the plus sides of that is that he wasn't rushed back. He was out for almost 12 months. He wasn't brought back after 7 or 6 and breaking down and things like that. It sounds like Southampton, thank God, managed his recovery. And that's a big plus for a young lad, because the longer and the better the way that they treat them, without forcing them to get back on the football pitch, the better. And it sounds like Southampton have done really, really well that way. You also think of Livramento and you realise that, well, he's actually English. I've seen people telling us that he's all sorts of different nationalities. He could actually qualify for Scotland. He could qualify for Portugal. But he's been at Chelsea since he was 9 years old. So that tells you there's something special about a kid when he's been at a club for so long, but doesn't want to go back because there was a £25 million release clause put in when Southampton signed him. And I suspect Chelsea put that in thinking, you know what? He's so dedicated to Chelsea. They'll want to come back. If we want him, then we can nab him for 25 million. That's often the way that football clubs like that play when they lose a young lad. They're not doing it because they want to cover themselves in sort of an add-on bonus or anything like that. They literally felt as though this lad was worth pursuing at 25 million. But it sounds like he doesn't want to go back. It sounds like he's seen the light. It sounds like he's looked at what's happened at Chelsea over the last few years, and he's probably looked again and thought, well, if formed us out once, I could end up like Mason Mount in 4 years' time, be formed out again. So, Chelsea's loss is hopefully going to be our gain, and I'm looking forward to it. Are we getting a bargain? Well, we don't know yet because we don't know how much we're actually going to be paying for him. I've seen everything from 25 to 35 million. What we do know is we've been able to go out and get him because we're hindered by FFP and we've had to put some money on the table or show that there's money on the table in terms of outgoings before we can get incomings. And I mentioned on I think it was it Tuesday night before the Rangers game, we recorded the show, went out on Wednesday, and I mentioned the fact that is there ever a manager who's never satisfied and never happy? And I think if there's been any sort of discussion taking place between Dan Ashworth and Eddie Howe, it'll be based on Eddie's frustration because he was hoping, whether he's had promises made or not, we'll never know. But naturally, as a manager, he's hoping he's going to have all his squad there available for the pre-season, for the friendlies, for the work that they're doing in America, to be part of the team, to integrate. And he's got one in so far, and he's got potentially two travelling over the weekend, or maybe he's one if Harvey Bonds is the only one, or may not even go over at all. We just don't know. So that's the sort of managerial and coaching frustrations that'll build up with Eddie, rather than, like the mad panic that I'm not getting who I want. Where's me signings? Yeah. All this type of thing. Yeah. There's a fine line. There's a dividing line that we'll have to think about. And just because it's Eddie Howe doesn't necessarily who we think is doing the shouting. Let's not forget that I'm sure Dan Ashworth's doing an awful lot of work behind the scenes, but his hand's up his back somewhat because of the restrictions that have been placed upon us and on our commercial department in terms of, you strike a commercial deal, but you're not getting a rubber stamp for weeks and weeks because the Premier League are going to cogitate and deliberate and probably hold you back. So these are some of the things that are happening in Newcastle United that behind the scenes, I'm sure they're getting frustrated by, but as supporters, we're just looking like Eddie. We want to know who's going to be playing. What's the team going to be on that first game of the season?
Can I come back?
Good luck to him picking that first team. Believe you me, that's going to be the hardest thing he's done this season. It might get easier as the season goes on, but the first game, wow, I wouldn't want to be Eddie Howe. Go on, George.
I just want to come back on the Trippier thing scenario. Imagine that we're doing well in the European Cup, which we will be, in my opinion. And he's on the substitute bench, and you get into a heated sort of debate at the Bernabeu or the San Siro or whatever. What better bloke to bring off the bench and march into a situation in a situation like that, other than Kieran Trippier, and I think that's his value may be there more as much as it is when he's on the field.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. JB says transfer off. Rumours ASM's pulled a hammy getting off the plane. He won't, man, not with all them bandages on. Anyone who knows me will know that I am an Ashes cricket fan. I'm not a big cricket fan, but I do watch the Ashes. 78 for 2 Australia, trailing by 197 runs. Certainly been a great day for England so far. So we will see how that continues. Alan did have a question for Steve Hasty. He says, question for Steve Hasty. Apart from your dad, who was your favourite teacher at St Mary's? I'll go Mr. Curry RE.
Well, my dad never actually taught us at St Mary's, so that blows that one out the window straight away. Favourite teacher at St Mary's? There were some good teachers at St Mary's. I'll have to come back to you on that one.
All right,
I'll,
yeah, you don't want it. You don't want
I'll, have a
it.
look, I'll work out which ones are dead and which ones are still
I
alive.
knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. I've also seen a lot of people saying, "Nice top, Steve." Well, thank you very much. I've been out today. I went to the Metro Centre. I went to JD Sports, Jackie Nicholson. I didn't go to the club shop. I've got to be perfectly honest. I tend to shop in sports shops, and JD Sports don't rip you off the same price as you would get it in the club shop. So I bought a tracksuit. I've looked at Eddie Howe and the lads wearing it since they came back from pre-season, and I've got to be honest, I thought I really, really like it. And I'm one of these who won't wear red. That's something that's come from being a Newcastle fan. I refuse to wear red on anything. Yep. So unfortunately, the stuff that Newcastle brought out last year had the red on it. But I love this. I love this like luminous color. It's fantastic. It's even better in the flesh. Tracksuits are a really nice fit. And I've got that, and I didn't do DHgate this year, so I bought me home top, black and white. I haven't gone for all the badges and everything. I've just got me black and white top. It leads nicely, I guess, to Sutty's question, not Sutty. And that is, now we know the 3 tops for the new season. Which one is your favourite? Well, I'm going to say that my top 3 is the blue one is first. The black and white one is second, and the green one is third. So our resident strip expert, Neil Mitchell.
Yeah.
What's your top 3?
No, the only one I've bought is the third kit.
Which one? So is that what? Do you like the
one that's just been released today? Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you like the blue one as well?
Yeah.
Second.
Home kit, and then the away.
Same as me.
The way was very predictable. It was always going to be green and white. But the other way around last season. I don't think it's a bad kit. I just think of the 3, the third kit inspires me more for whatever reason.
Okay. Alan Little saying, Mr. Egan, Mrs. Barker, Mr. Cater, we're turning this into like all Steve's yesteryears. Yeah. He's still thinking about it. Alan, can you let us know who's alive or dead? It might help Steve's decision.
Jimmy Egan, he looked after our football team and he dropped us, so he's off the list. Mrs. Barker never taught us. Mr. Leach, he was our head of sixth form. Bill McBride at the old St. Mary's was probably one of the best deputy headmasters you could ever have, and an absolutely smashing guy. But John Croney, the art teacher, I think if anything, I would say John Croney. We got on really well with John. Even after we left school, we used to see him regularly at the match. We used to bump into him in the where was it? The on Percy Street. Used to bump into him in the pubs on there. That's where he used to go. Before the games. Sadly passed away a couple of years ago, but was a great guy, and he took us down to an exhibition in London back in 1977, Pompey Art Exhibition, and you've never seen 30 lads run round an exhibition so quick in your life, because he stupidly told us as soon as it was over we had some free time. I mean, literally. Usain Bolt didn't stand a chance. I've never seen it. Scattering people out the way as we ran through this exhibition.
Classic. Okay, Steve, well, we're with you. Give us your top 3 tops for this season.
I like the black and white home top first.
Okay.
There's something crystal clear about it. I think it's because there's no colour on the front. I like the black and the black and the black, if you know what I mean. No coloured advertising. Second, the one that just come out. I think that looks really classy. And third one would be the green.
Okay, George.
I'm just looking over my shoulder to see if Eamon Andrews is coming in the room.
This is your life, George.
It's normally, yeah. Normally I'm looking when Steve's on. I'm looking over my shoulder to see if there's a bloody dog coming. Never mind, Eamon Andrews. Never mind. That's. I've got to agree with you and Neil that was the black and white, because it's in a sense it's not only is it's plain, it's very traditional, and if you look at the setup of the collar and the sleeves, it takes me back to the Charlie Mitten strip of 1961. It's almost identical to that, and that's a strip I actually wore. And until they brought that one out yesterday, that would have been my favourite, because all the things Steve said, it's got no cut. The colour's gone. It is a black and white strip. And the only thing I'd say was that I hope it's got a red number on the back, but never mind, don't upset you, Steve. No, the blue one, it would be my favourite. Then the black and white, and then the green. Even though I was delighted to see them bite the bullet and put the green out, despite all the tripe from our detractors in the press and elsewhere. That I think we've got a good collection this year, and I wouldn't hesitate to wear any of them, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, great stuff. The new strips would look nice if Castori could get them to me, says his dudeness. Agree with Steve. 3, all are great, but the home top, then the blue, and then the green. Yeah, a lot of people prefer black and white full stop. I mean, I do, I've got to be honest, but the blue one is really classy, and that Mitch has ordered it. I think most of us agree the blue one is really nice, and yeah, I shall probably go and get that too. Warlads choose Buckter, says Alan, showing his age, and showing our age for recognising it.
Fantastic.
It is. As always,
those purple tops at the 74 Cup final. Brilliant.
Fan bloody tastic. 523 watching.
That Stan Seymour couldn't get rid of.
We never take your support for granted. 523 watching. Thanks as always in the chat as well. But as always on a Friday, we have a lot to get through, and we're going to start with Tweet of the Week. John's having a bad day. He tried to button his shirt and the button fell off. He picked up his briefcase and the handle fell off. He went to open the door and the doorknob fell off. Now he's afraid to go for a pee. You have to squint to see this one, but in case of an accident, bring cheese and crackers. Lots and lots of cheese and crackers. That has to be one of the best backs of a van I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Deleted scene from King Kong.
Oh.
I did like that. And those of you know, I'm a Star Wars fan as well. I do love these. It's a great thing. Only a Star Wars fan will see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Wow.
And please do not flush anything except toilet tissue. Somebody put, what do I do with my huge shit then? Picture him standing there with it in his hands. I did go to see Indiana Jones at the Pictures this week with Johnny Allen. It was a fantastic film, perfect and a wonderful franchise. Here's Harrison Ford. I'm Han Solo, Indiana Jones, and Blade Runner. I'm fucking over it. Great t-shirt. And that, believe you me, is a t-shirt that he has. And that was the kind of attitude he had when he was in Newcastle. Thanks to Zara for all the tweets that she sent. Think he's taking his resemblance to Kylo Ren too seriously, lads. Tonali channeling his inner Star Wars. And Matt Ritchie trying to convince Sandro Tonali the British weather isn't so bad.
Yeah.
To deep dive. I had a few versions of this. This was the first one I got, though. Did you know, in order to play the role of an insane and mentally depressed person, Joaquin Phoenix bought a season ticket for Tottenham and went to every game?
I have the Sunderland one.
Yes, that one came to us too late, unfortunately. I've got to honour the person who comes in first. All together now, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Chameleon. We come and go. There we go. Bit of singing as well for Julie. Tweet of the week. Who did this? Spurs kit for next season. Pampers. Piss up the front and shit up the back. Excellent.
Oh dear.
Excellent. Soup for sluts. I'm sure that'll catch on.
Oh.
Possibly with Jabba the Slut. And Viagra. It won't make you James Bond, but it will make you Roger Moore. Very good, Wayne. I like that one. I found where you live. Luckily, that wasn't sent to me as an offence. Otherwise, it could have been the troll of the week. And here's the best plumber advertising ever.
Oh, dear.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
So you're around the stadium, like.
It is. This guy needs a plumber. Never trust a fart. Thanks to Soda Pop Kid for that. And it's time you bought me some new drawers, Mr. Smith.
Hey.
Nothing like a bit of Blackpool comedy.
Yeah.
Why alien abductions happen only at night? It's 9 p.m. and you're just now telling me that you need a human for school tomorrow? And this post has been removed because it might cause offence.
Oh dear.
Soda Pop Kid, you've been on fire this week.
Aye.
Stephen Kennedy says, and so it begins. Only the very best generations will get this.
Oh.
Roadrunner and Wile Coyote, of course.
Coyote.
For those of you who are looking at that going, what on earth does that mean? My son is taking part in a social experiment. He has to wear a Just Stop Oil t-shirt for 2 weeks and see how people react. So far, he's been spit on, punched, and had a bottle thrown at him. I'm curious to see what happens when he goes outside. Thanks, Milburn. Mary had a little skirt. It split right up the sides. And everywhere that Mary went, the boys could see her thighs. She also had another skirt. It split right up the front. She never wore that one.
Oh.
Paddy went to the bank for a loan. The teller says, I'm sorry, but the loan arranger isn't in today. Okay, Paddy replies, I'll speak to Tonto if he's in.
Dear me.
And the Tom Jones Guide to Genetics. XY, male. XX, female. YYY, Delilah.
Delilah.
Oh.
Dear me.
41 years waiting on a top. Royal Mail or a joke? That was in response to Barry Celtic Brown, who said, yes, my 1982 top came this morning. This is a great picture. Not a good look, though.
Oh.
Thought it was Keith on his holidays. God damn it. I'm my own worst enemy, says Stephen. Apparently, I'm not allowed into the Build-A-Bear workshop anymore. And this one will stick in your head for a while, lads. Whoa, Black Betty.
Oh,
Dear
yeah.
me.
Bam balam.
Balam.
And if you can think of a better fish pun, let me know.
Oh, God.
Oh,
Not good at caught on about that.
When car designers drop acid, 1961 Chrysler Imperial. And when your mom hates you, but daddy still named you after him. Peace, Ishit. Thanks, Jimmy. And another one here. When you wake up on a Monday morning feeling pretty shetty.
Oh.
And my brother took going to jail really badly. He refused all offers of food and drink. He spat and swore at anyone who came near him, and he smeared the walls with his own feces. After that, we never played Monopoly again. I need a small club. Yeah, use the Tottenham. Thanks to
I
Jay.
like that.
Yeah, executive. And at school, my favourite lesson was PE, probably because I had the biggest cock. I used to stroll around the changing room naked, flicking the kids with me towel whilst pointing and laughing at their little knobs. Looking back, I think it was probably why I had to leave teaching.
Oh,
God.
Look how instinctively the mother croc carries the baby in its mouth. Nature is beautiful.
Yeah, me.
And this looks like the start of a very peculiar adventure. This is a brilliant photograph that was on the BBC this week. That's a mouse on the top of the dog's head.
A mouse?
Yeah.
Aye.
That's fantastic, that. You just wonder whether he actually placed it there or whether it landed. Paul Whitfield said, he says, I've seen some comebacks in football, but there'll never be a greater comeback in football than Andros Townsend's hairline. That's like Chris.
You went to Dr. Cynic.
Yeah, what's next? Liam Nissan, sorry.
Oh, yeah. I
No.
like that.
wow.
Last few. Even if the score was 14-0, it was always next goal the winner when it was time to go home, says Diddy.
Aye,
Yeah.
definitely.
Top three. Ali are in talks to sign ASM from Newcastle. This deal will really help us with financial fair play, said Newcastle owner Mohammed Bin Salman. Glad we could help, said Ali owner Mohammed Bin Salman. Number two, eyelashes are supposed to prevent things from going into your eyes, but whenever I have something in my eye, it's always an eyelash. ironic.
Oh dear.
Absolutely.
And I think you all know by now as well, I'm a Jaws fan. I love this. This is the winner this week. Somebody deserves a raise.
Nah.
Great stuff. There was a few late ones. I will stick them in next week's. But for now, keep them coming. Thank you to Zara, as always. That is Tweet of the Week. Okay, we have got lots of comments and chat coming in. Thank you for all your nice words about Stu Flyboy Ray, who passed away today. Our thoughts are with him. Gary Milligan says, afternoon panel. Mr. Hastings, do you remember saying that you were going to do an Amigos show in the bath?
Nope.
Okay, well, there's an answer to a question. Maybe that's just wishful thinking on Gary's behalf. I've got no idea.
Why?
Yeah, we're still waiting for any news on ESM, so we will do him the grace of at least having a little chat about him tonight. There has been a meltdown on Twitter this week, Mitch, about ESM. Look, I put one tweet out yesterday. I just put his stats out, right? I didn't say anything positive. I didn't say anything negative. I just put his stats out from the seasons that he's been at the club, and I looked at the reaction. I watched the reaction. That was the reason I put it out like that. I wasn't attacked. Lots of people were having a go at each other doing it. My point about ASM, because a lot of people are calling him a legend on Twitter. Now, he's not a legend. And I probably will do a little short video about this at some point on the channel. He's not a legend for me. A legend is, it has to be earned. And he's certainly not a legend. But I think, and this is my understanding of why there is a cry for him being called a legend on social media. I think the younger supporters, the younger fan base, this is their first hero. This is the first person who they have been able to look up to and sing a song about. And, in an era which was, dominated by mismanagement off the pitch, lack of investment, apathy on the terraces, fans leaving in their droves. You know what I mean? It was the one shining light in that team who got you out your seat and who, did a trick, who gave the fans attention, who appeared that he wanted to be here and cared about the place, who knew what to say on social media and put things across on social media to influence the way that supporters feel and think. And I get it. I understand it. And I think it comes with age. You'll realize in due course when more players like Tonali, Isak, Botman, Bruno sign, surely people will eventually realize that ASM wasn't the player that they thought he was. But for now, we've got to respect the younger fans' attitude towards ASM, I think. And I think there needs to be a little bit of that from us. But
I think
he's not a legend, Mitch, is he?
I think we also have to try and understand it. And I think that's part of the reason why people have noticed this week I've been a little bit quiet on social media and stepped away a little bit. My timeline was a hotbed of fan against fan and reaping those divisions that I've talked about for ages, and it just felt like deja vu. Add to that other things I was getting from other places about transfers, about ticketing, about what we do here on NUFC Matters, and I've talked about this before, is an utter privilege. People feel they can come to me and talk to me away from open social media on DMs and things like that about all sorts. And my DMs weighed very heavy this week, and I had to just take time to think about where everything was coming from. And one thing I used to do when I was chair of the trust was try and get into the heads of people and say, right, why do you think that way? Why are you thinking in such a very different way to the way I am and other certain people are? And why is this person against that person, etc.? There's definitely a generational shift about ESM. I don't want to call them the FIFA generation because I think it's a bit more complicated than that. But there's certainly a younger generation who are social media influenced, who lap up everything that the SM and his team has done on social media. who take it all to heart and take it in the way that they're meant to take it from the people who handle the social media. And that's not criticism, by the way. There is also, though, a very big disconnect, I think, between certainly me and my generation of fans and a younger generation of fans about what we think is quote unquote a baller. I'm not taken in by show pony moves and prancing over the ball when we're only 1-0 up against Crystal Palace and all the things he did that were great on TikTok and great on social media. And that for me did nothing for me at all. But it's not just Newcastle United that's unique too, and it's not just football that's unique too. This week, a couple of things I've seen in the last week was one of the YouTube channels took a load of the football trick shot and ball juggling guys to Barcelona and set them up against Araujo, the Uruguayan defender, and said, right, you've got 2 goals, beat him and put the ball in the back of the net. And what you saw in that video was lads who were undoubtedly talented. They'd had all the tricks under the sun. But when you put them up against a defender with international level football intelligence, they never got past them. They could still be doing it now and they would never get past him. And he was outstanding. I've got to say, it was a fantastic example of the difference between somebody who can do tricks and flicks and skills on the ball, a baller, and for me, someone who's got football intelligence. The other one I was directed at, because I've picked up the golf clubs again in the last couple of weeks, and I've been golfing with a few lads again out here, and I was made aware of somebody who was known as the driver off the deck king, a young lad in America who makes a specialism of hitting his driver without a tee shot. So basically, you can take his driver and play the ball off the deck with a driver. In terms of a golf shot, that's a fantastic shot to play. I couldn't do it. My driver's one of my bloody handicaps, for God's sake. Last time I got my driver out in anger, I was attacked by a species of ant that had never been found before, and a guy from Japan who thought the wall was still on. You know, it was that far in the rough. But to do that is a superb skill. But the lad's got a bigger handicap than me, and he's seen as a golf baller. And yet, you know, when it comes to what does that actually do for you in a round of golf? Nothing. And yet he's got, 145,000 followers on his TikTok, and everybody talks about this driver on the deck king, because some of the guys in the group club were talking about him and saying, well, what the hell is this all about? And they didn't understand it. And I felt very much the same disconnect that we have with a generation of our fans. Like I said, I don't want to call them the FIFA generation, because our Josh technically is part of that, and I don't think he thinks the same way as this. I think it's something different. That people are super impressed by somebody who has an amazing array of talent, but doesn't necessarily have all of the working parts to make that talent become something super special. And I think that's what we're talking about with ASM. It's been my frustration with him. That guy could do anything he wanted to do, but he didn't do it often enough for us, in my opinion. And that was my frustration with him. And I've said that on here countless times. I wanted him to win anything and everything in a black and white shirt, because on his day, he is unplayable. But he's not unplayable enough. When he's rolling around on the halfway line, rattling bandages, when he's complaining about the AC on a flight that's somewhere and he hasn't filled all the paperwork in properly in the club, they're having to dig him out of shit. When I'm aware of so many different things that people brought to my attention, and I still won't break any confidences over this, because A, people will lose their jobs, and B, it's not worth it. It's past history now. But my problem with him always was he came with significant amount of complications, all of which were his own doing and nothing to do with Newcastle United. And it hindered his progress. And I think the club, I think the manager, and I think the squad, based on the fact that Kieran Trippier used to talk highly of him about somebody he used to try and aftermarket in training. I think the club wanted to protect him. I think the squad wanted to protect him and give him a little bit of rope. But like a lot of these situations, when they're given enough rope, they hang themselves. And I think there's a genuine disconnect within my fan base about how we see ASM. And this week added to that things about Howard Ashworth, things about ticketing, things about groups vying for ticketing, and I'm going to try and stay away from that massively because, God, if I start on that, we'll be here for 4 hours. That's why I stepped away a little bit this week. I needed some time to digest everything that was going on. I'm not happy that ESM is gone, because I think ESM on his day could be an amazing asset for Newcastle United, but he hasn't been that enough for us, and so we need to move on.
George, your take on ESM? I mean, most people in the chat agree with us. He was never a legend, but I think most of us are respectful of the fact that he did a great job for us, whilst, you know, he's been at the club and in a particularly dark time, George.
Yes, well, I get nervous when you lads talk about a generational difference when I look at my age compared to all the others. No, he wasn't a legend and didn't really earn the merit of even being talked about as a legend. And Neil said most of it, as you both have at other times as well. He didn't do it often enough for us. You know, we're talking about French wingers the other night, and you know, the stats is a good one, Steve, that you put out. Somebody said on one of the comments was that well, he scored a goal of the season. But it was the only bloody goal he scored. You know, you can't have that kind of prima donna in a squad like ours that's built on togetherness, and it's quite clear that's the one thing he never was. And as to the youngsters, like, and the stuff he does on social media and all the other stuff he does, if he was dedicated to his game and his team as he is to his social media, he would have become a legend. But he wasn't. He just was. He misfired too often for me, and that's it. And the other thing, going back as a you know, an old-fashioned player, I used to like to watch the videos of him doing his step overs. And there's one particular one that I always use where he's standing with the ball at his feet and he does about 5 step overs at the same time. Well, I've got to tell you, he'd been standing in front of me doing that. By the time he got the second step over, it'd have been sitting on his backside. Yeah, well, I wouldn't have took that off anybody, you know. So he didn't. He just didn't bring it often enough, and that's frustrating because, and I'm going to contradict myself, when he was on the ball, when he was on his game, he was magic to watch. He was great, but you can't afford to sit around and wait for magic once every 10 games or even more. It you know, just knackers the team. And then all the other stuff you used to see on social media, and especially when he was allowed to drift off to France to get himself fit and all this sort of thing. That must have caused the occasional comment in the dressing room by others, and certainly when Bruce was our manager, I'm sure it did. But also, it means that's something else that Eddie Howe has to manage. And do we really need all of that? So there's a bit of me that's sad to see a talent go, but there's also a bit of me that says, well, if him going is going to release all of this stuff that we're doing at the moment and make a big hole in an FFP and all the rest of it, because I'm still convinced there's another signing coming that they've been working on and we don't know about. Then he had to go for the benefit of the whole team and the whole club. not just of Alan Saint-Maxim. Always be grateful for some of the things that he did. Can't be anything else. Because there are those in the fan base who would say he saved Bruce's neck a couple of times in the things he did. Well, perhaps he did, but not often enough, I'm afraid. Not often enough. Great talent. But for me, a wasted talent. I'm trying to think others in the era, but we've had quite a few like that. But he's one of the standouts of someone who could have been the legend, but wasn't the legend.
97 for 3. England make another breakthrough, and it's a crucial one. England, it's fantastic. It's fantastic to see England doing so well, and then hopefully can get back and draw the series. But it's a little take by Bairstow behind the stumps, Wood with the ball, and that's another Australian wicket. 97 for 3. Crucial wicket just when a nice little partnership was being made. So let's hope that we can continue in the same form. Okay, Steve. Listen, anyone who didn't watch Geordie's There on Wednesday, give it a watch. It was a pre-recorded show. We asked everybody on the panel to place the 4 enigmas in a top 4. We asked the lads to give their rankings for Ginola, Ben Arfa, ASM and Robert. ASM came bottom of everybody's list. So Steve, he's not a legend on this panel. I can appreciate some people might feel he's a legend, but lots of people in the chat saying you can't compare ASM to Supermac, Alan Shearer, all of these people. You can't do it. And somebody in the chat before that just said Shearer was the last legend we actually had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, football's moved on. Footballers are held in a totally different regard these days, aren't they? You look at the whole social media life that they lead. ASM had a team of people working for him that he brought over a couple of seasons ago that basically spent their time making sure that his profile was boosted and constantly boosted. He had I think a lot of the younger generation, and Mitch has covered it quite eloquently there. But this little game that he had, that he was promoting, the way that he promoted that, the way that he integrated with the fan base when he wasn't even playing, I mean, he was out for a long time last season. We probably saw him playing his card game more than we did see him playing on the pitch at St James's Park. I mean, you look at his career at Newcastle, 124 games, 13 goals. You look at his career stats. He's played 293 games in total, and he's only scored 35 goals. So you could argue that goals are not his thing. He reminds me very similarly with that Adama Traore at Wolves. There's a player who's had 295 games in his, or 358 games in his career, scored 29 goals. But a myth built up about him, and he's covering himself in oil, and he going to Barcelona on loan, and it was a fabulous opportunity. He played 11 games with Barca. I just find the similarities between the two. Absolute speed merchants, the pair of them. Wonderful with the ball at their feet. But if you opened the back door at Molineux, I'm sure he would have ended up down the high street in Wolves. And exactly the same if you opened the back door sometimes for ASM. He wouldn't have actually made it into Weldon Square. He would have spun round in the car park quite a few times though, and then worked his way back to the goal at the Gallagher end. But the style of football has changed. Newcastle and Eddie Howe wants to play it differently. I think he wants the ball move faster. He's got players who can play in ASM's position, and he can only select 11 at a time. And I think he's probably genuine in some of the things he said about him moving. Sometimes when a player's been at club 4 or 5 years, it becomes a point when they're not getting a game or when they're injured, and when they're out and the club moves forward, the first team moves forward, but the player stays the same. And the manager has to move on, and he has to look at different options and different ways of playing. And perhaps that, along with the fact that ASM was probably our only saleable asset, the only one of the squad of players that you would consider expendable that you would be willing to let go, but still bringing in genuine, decent amount of money for to release the funds through your FFP, and it's all to do with accounting. So, you know, I think there's an awful lot of balls being juggled, and ASM wasn't juggling any of them, but there was an awful lot of balls being juggled by the club and by Eddie in deciding exactly what they could do with ASM and did he fit in. And I think at the end of the day, they made a decision that says, you know what, we have to let him go, we have to let him move on, because we need to rebuild in a certain way. Probably not. I bet you any money if our IFFP situation wasn't so severe that Eddie would have been delighted to have kept him, and I'm sure most of us would have been delighted to have him as part of the first team. But unfortunately, you know, things have happened. Things need to move on. It's not like he's moving on with a, you know, leaving a nasty taste in anyone's mouth. You know, I think most people appreciate what he did. Most people appreciate that he seems like a genuinely nice bloke. And, you know, yes, behind the scenes, that he may be a bit of an enigma. But to the fans, he wasn't. He was amiable. He made himself available. He signed autographs. He gave free watches away. He did an awful lot of things. He invited fans to his house to play cards and stuff like that. You know, I know of one group that didn't just play cards, but he had them out playing tag rugby on the grass and five-a-side on the patio. You know, that's the sort of guy he was. You know, send the kids back in. My guests here are going to play on the football on the grass in the garden.
And,
you've got to, you know.
And all of those things is why when people used to have a pop at me because it was anti-ASM and this, that, and the other, not really, no. I would have loved nothing more to see him succeed in the black and white shirt because of all of those things in there. But we also know, both ourselves and Stu in particular, some of the stuff that we had fed back with, I think would blow some people's minds, if we be honest about it. We've never really bitched about it, used it, or turned it. We certainly could have done if we were anti-ASM. Quite the opposite. I still remain impressed how tolerant the club were of some of those things, particularly during COVID. And it frustrates me that he ultimately is moving on without delivering more.
Yeah.
Because he could deliver so much more. And we all know that. No, you don't have to win things to be a legend because we've won nothing since the 1950s. But at the same time, I get why some people hang on to what he did, particularly under Bruce, because sometimes it was the only little spark in the dark that we had going on. It frustrates the life. Really
usually, when you lose a legend, your concern is the fact that you can't see how he's going to be replaced.
Yeah.
And with ASM, you know how he's going to be replaced. You know he's been replaced by someone who is a very, very good footballer. Know that someone who's going to be included in the team. You know, there's an awful, like I said, there's an awful lot of plate spinning that has to go on to manage a football team and to manage all the personalities and everything. You know, and some people can walk in and cause chaos, and I think he sometimes is one of them because he usually walks into the room late.
the one thing that would frustrate me forever is that game against Man City, where he took one of the best right backs in Europe, in Kyle Walker, and turned him into a bowl of spaghetti.
Yeah.
For 45 minutes, Walker didn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
So why didn't he do that against however many other right backs in the Premier League? Because we knew he could.
Yeah, unfortunately, after turning his legs into spaghetti, his own legs turned into some sort of spaghetti as well, because his hamstrings went, his calves went, his groin went,
And,
his back
and
went.
that will be my eternal frustration, is that we all know what he has the potential to do.
Yeah. And
now it's going to be lost within a morass of the Saudi Premier League as they try and disrupt world football, and particularly disrupt the Asian conference.
Yeah, and we all know that the reason why they're doing it is because they want the World Cup. But unlike Qatar, who got the criticism that they didn't have an established league in Qatar of any particular note, what they're doing is they're doing it slightly differently. And they're building and creating a league and going, look at the supports we get, look at how we can fill grounds already. And then come along and FIFA, we know, go, oh, yes, because they're going to be one of the very few countries that will have the money come 2030 to pump in to actually run a World Cup, because they're getting more and more and more expensive. Yeah. What would be interesting is if they also say, and we'll take a World Cup for the women's football as well. That's the big one.
Yes, we haven't mentioned that, but it has kicked off.
Sorry. Steve mentioned about Barnes being included in the team. The only thing I'd add to that is in every sense being included in the team, and that's the thing you couldn't say about ASM. They couldn't include him in everything. I mean, for God's sake, he used to get wrong every morning off Eddie Howe for being late because he took his kids to school or something like that. You know, all those little things add up to sheer frustration for a lot of people. So to have somebody who looks like he's going to be an Eddie Howe player, Eddie Howe trainer, and Eddie Howe is something of a relief.
Yeah,
Barry says
Wednesday night in Luton. It's now going to be a Wednesday night in Jeddah.
Yeah.
Barry said, someone said to me they'd rather sell Almiron and raise money. I started to laugh. If ASM had Miggy's commitment and passion, he would have been world class, which is a great point, Barry. And Sean, it's a question which nobody can answer because, you know, there isn't a team in the top half of the table that Maxi starts for me. You know, that really sums Maxi up, sadly. You know what I mean? And Eddie Howe was never going to say, I don't like Maxi. He doesn't fit my plan. I want to get rid of him. He was always going to say, I want to keep a hold of him.
Surely if he was that good, wouldn't the other teams have been knocking on Eddie Howe's door saying, we want Maxi, we want Maxi?
Where's the queue of clubs lining up to spend money on him?
Yeah. Just one club? Why is Chelsea not bid for him?
Yeah, it's a good point. And getting away from ASM, the legend debate kicked off in the chat. I'm sure you guys will have seen it. And it's a very valid point. You know, Bill Burnett saying Tony Green was a great player, and he was, but I wouldn't say he's a Newcastle legend. I loved him. I remember him taking England apart. And this is the thing with the word the word legend. It can be used. I mean, some teams play collectively well, but you wouldn't call the players legends, with the exception of Peter Beardsley in the Entertainers team before Alan Shearer arrived. They were a collective. They weren't a team of legends. We call them, you know, the Entertainers, but you know, it's one of those situations. You know, we tend to give the mantle of legend at St James's Park to those who scored the goals in the number 9 shirt. But Peter Beardsley was probably one of those exceptions. You know, Joe Harvey, because not only did he play and captain the side, but he also managed the side to success. So he rightly is a legend. Kevin Keegan didn't win as a trophy, but he won his promotion as a player and as a manager, rightly remembered as a legend. And, you know, it's so difficult. ASM isn't a legend. There's no doubt in my mind that he is not a legend. He's a player who served us well at a time of need, but who, when, you know, very like Kieran Dyer. I always make this kind of comparison. Very like Kieran Dyer. In a good team, looked average. In a poor team, looked great. And some players
like Johan Kabay for me, another one. You know, great footballer, but you know, didn't cry over the fact that he left. You know,
Shea Given, I
No.
would agree, Barry. Shea Given is another one. Because he's the amount of games he played for Newcastle, he was superb. Yeah, he's up there. Cernacek was a good friend of mine. I was his agent for the last couple of years of his life. Was he a legend? Not really.
Struggle with that one myself.
I couldn't say he was a legend. And I don't think he would have seen himself as a legend. Part of the entertainers. Hughie Gallagher. That team has to be looked at as collectively as legends. But Gallagher was also a wonderful goal scorer. Gallagher falls into legend territory for me. He won the league in 1927. Jackie, 100%. He is a club legend. But the Robledo brothers, George and Ted, collectively part of a good team, legends. If you're going to give Robledo the legendary status, you've got to give Bobby Cowell legendary status. You've got to give you've got to give the whole team really legendary status. So this is what I'm saying. It's difficult. Frank Clark, to some people, legend, but I don't know. The list goes on and on. It's a great debate. It is a great debate. And will any of this modern day team become legends? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But we're going to move on. We have gone into the second half of the show, and as you know, we always have to have the ads. So here we go. Big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you want to order some, then you can go to their website, mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks also to New Workwear. They were set up in 2018, and they are an agile and dedicated workwear provider. You can find them at their website, newworkwear.com. Thanks to Media Arts as well for all the help with the video side of things. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button under this video. Hit the thumb up to like the video, and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on your podcast providers such as iTunes and Spotify. If you'd like to take out a cult membership, which means you get a cup, a pen, a membership card, a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw, then put your smartphone over this QR code now. It'll take you straight to the site. You can set up and pay a one-off fee of £25. Alternatively, go to nufcmatters.com and check for membership. If you're a subscriber, you can apply for a free car sticker. Just email john@nufcmatters.com to claim yours today. The new Shearer raffle is up and running. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket to win a limited edition Alan Shearer signed ball. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a couple of events coming up. Newcastle United question and answer live with Liam Kennedy, Jordan Cronin and Dominic Skerr from Newcastle World and the Shields Gazette in association with NUFC Matters. Takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre, 11th of August at 7 p.m, and tickets are £5. The Christmas event will be with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday, December the 7th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15 from nufcmatters.com. And Waddle, Keegan and Beardsley, the class of 84, with special guests, takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westcott Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 25th. Tickets are available direct from the theatre, 0844 24 91 000, or go to the website for further details. And don't forget, starting on the 7th of August, you will be able to hear myself, Steve Wraith, on the Northeast Footy Breakfast. This comes to you in association with the Toon Radio, 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, 5 days a week. Check out the Facebook for more details. Okay, don't forget as well, Steve Watson at Time Out Surf Cafe, 8th of August with John Gibson. Tickets, I think they've done about 17. They do need to sell this out, and I'd hate to think the event was going to get cancelled. It's a very small venue. It only holds 35. If you are thinking about going, can I ask you to buy your tickets now for that one for Watto and Gibbo? surfcafetimeout.co.uk is where you can buy your tickets. But they do have to sell all the tickets for the event to go ahead. And I think they'd struggled a bit. They got off to a great start, but I don't think they've managed to sell as many as they hoped. So if you are thinking of going and you can spare the time and the cash to get along Tuesday, the 8th of August, get yourself to surfcafetimeout.co.uk/ticketweb.uk to go and buy your tickets. And as you know, I often do different podcasts on here from time to time. I had the pleasure of interviewing Penny Ellis yesterday, which goes live tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Now, she was in Big Brother 2. Those of you who like a bit of reality TV, this was when it really was a social experiment. And Penny's life really took a downward spiral after she'd been in the show. And this is what the interview is about. Lost her job and lost a bit of sense of reality, it has to be said. But this is an hour-long interview with Penny. She's got a book out called Meet Me at the Mirror, and perfect timing with Big Brother having a resurgence again on ITV later this summer. So that's 6 o'clock tomorrow night. You can see it. It's uploaded now. Set a reminder, and something a little bit different, but thoroughly enjoyed speaking to Penny. What a lovely lady. Okay, it is time for you to adjust the volume on your set or put your fingers in the ears, because it's that lovely music. The day I met, where we asked you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present, and I love this one. No fool like an old fool. He said, the day I met my boy Lewis with Jack Charlton at a formal dinner held for the local Army cadets group. And there's Jack. God bless him with a sense of humour. Thank you for that, Col. Absolutely brilliant, mate. I hope you enjoyed seeing it on the channel. If you've got a photograph of yourself, and I've got a couple in storage here for the next couple of weeks, but if you've got one, send it in. Can be past or present, and we will feature it on the show and annoy people with this loud music. Tell Ross is in the chat. He says, meltdown over Maxi, but it's simple. If he consistently performed like Bruno and Botman and Joe Linton, he would have stayed. He didn't. Not enough class performances, hence allowed to go. And Barnes in. Wise comments as always. Sutty says, I mightn't be the only one who thinks this, but I've been impressed by Ashby. I wouldn't loan him out. I would have him as backup to Trippier. Yeah, certainly a great goal.
I think there's a thought you'll play further up the pitch, potentially.
Yeah, you mentioned that, didn't you? Yeah. Toon Fan as well says, I'm joining Just Stop Oil. He always seem to get tickets to all the major sports events. It's a very good point, that. And Chris Down, good to see new faces in the chat. We've got quite a few in tonight. Julie J, who was on earlier as well, big shout out to you. Chris Down says, question for George, with Diaby heading to Villa. Well, we're going to ask it to everybody, so we'll start with you, Mitch. Do you think Eddie Howe went with Barnes over Diaby to avoid having another French winger? A lot of French players seem to struggle with the physicality of the English Premier League. I don't think that's the case.
I don't think so at all. I think we've checked Diaby out with a through transfer windows. And I think if he ticked all the boxes for everybody, he'd be a Newcastle United player. One of the things that was leaked, and I believe from the person who let me know this, who's a national journalist, was that part of the deal with Villa that he wanted to live in London and have Villa transport him to training and for games at their expense. If that's genuine, if that's real, I don't know how real it is, but bearing in mind he was also prepared to play a Saudi offer against Villa's offer.
Yeah.
To take whatever he could. And no, I'll never blame a footballer for doing that. Do you know who I've been really impressed with is Neves, who gave the most honest reply. My family is the best cup I will ever win, and I'm going to do what's right for them. You know what? Fair play to you, kid. You've been honest. You've been straight with everybody in football in a world where very few people are properly straight. And if what I've been told about your hobby is that he wanted to live in London and travel to Birmingham for training at Villa's expense every day, we've dodged a huge bullet, a £50 million bullet with that. Don't know if it's true. Could be a load of shit. I've been giving it in good faith. He doesn't know if it's true or not. But that's come from somebody somewhere, given the connections this individual has in football. And he's not a Newcastle fan, he's not an Aston Villa fan, he's actually a Liverpool fan. And he's a sports journalist based here in the Middle East. And Steve knows who I'm talking about now. And he came to me with that about 6 days ago. You've dodged a bullet with him. This is what I've just been told. He wants to go to Villa, doesn't really want to go to Saudi. He'd prefer to go to Villa, but he wants to live in London. Sorry, like. Bye-bye. No dickheads policy. That has a big red dickhead flag attached to it for me. And so we shouldn't be getting my knickers in a twist about players we haven't signed and players who've gone to other clubs. If they tick the boxes and they want to come to Newcastle United, I think the deals are always going to be done. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
Listen to what our chairman said. Listen to what Howe wants. Listen to what Ashworth wants. Everybody wants the same thing. And we don't need players who are prepared to do shit like that. Simple as that.
Yeah, I just think it's it's just one of those things that gets stuck on social media and it suddenly becomes a truth. George, you're not going to avoid a Frenchman. Newcastle will go for the right player at the right place with the right temperament, won't they? That's just, it doesn't matter where they're from.
And we have had Frenchmen who fitted in straight away. It doesn't fit whether there's been a waste of space, but we have had people who fitted in straight away and have done wonders for the club. I think Neil's hit the nail on the head. It's more about his commitment to wherever club he's going to, whether it be Newcastle or Aston Villa or anybody else. You couldn't see a commitment other than what was good for him. I want this salary. Yeah. I want this. And if the stuff about living in London is true, well, you don't want that. I mean, I don't want anybody to play for Newcastle who lives further than Ponteland, if I can help it. You want them near the club. You want to be near committed to the society that they're playing in, as well as everything else. But to have somebody who lives in the capital and travels to Birmingham, what sort of relationship are you going to have, other than fighting off the kids at the door when he drives out the training ground or he's chauffeured out the training ground? No, that's not what we need. We need commitment to Newcastle United. End of. Not half commitment, not commitment for him and nothing else. No, I think the other issue is a very good one by Neil. How many windows have we sat and talked about this Diaby transfer? So that means it sounds like, if it's true, that Newcastle have been talking about him. If they've talked about them that long, they weren't convinced. And if they're not convinced, I'm not convinced. So no, I think Neil's right. We could have missed a very expensive bullet there with that one.
Yeah, we're not going to avoid French players, Steve, are we?
No. But let's face it, Diaby was this season's Ekatike. That's all I think. Another one. Yeah. Constantly dragged out. Didn't want to come anywhere. Nobody thought to ask him. Probably the club turned around and just moved on, and that's what we have to do when you hear players like Diaby mentioned. And you hear what Mitch has just said. You know, there's never smoke without fire. We're not going to get caught up in it. I think we've got a board who now just go, you know what? Yeah, we'll move on. There's a list.
Yeah.
There's a list of 20, 30 players, and they're all a gnat's head between them in terms of talent and where they fit in, and whether you're looking at 15 players for each position that you think you need to fill, and you work your way down the list, you don't even get on the list unless you're that close. So we just move on. The RB, if he wants to go to Villa, he goes to Villa. We'll see how good Villa have done this before. They bought Costa last year, didn't they? Immediately got injured. It's a big gamble for them. It's big money. It's a big season for Villa because it could go either way for them. Everybody's making out that they're going to be up there at the top of the league. They're going to be pushing. They're convinced they are. I'm not convinced they will be. But let's just see. We just concentrate on the players that we got. But as we've always said, until they're holding that black and white shirt up, that's when we start to get excited, Steve. You've said it time and time again to me.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, 100%. Australia, as you will have seen, 109 for 4, trailing by 166. Another wicket for Wood. Labuschagne's on 41. Get him out, and I think the Aussies will crumble. Could be a great end to this Test match. Let's hope so. And as always, Steve, plenty dogs have been sent in. Here we go.
Oh, God.
We should be sponsored by a pet food or Crufts.
We need to be. Anybody's got a pet food business or pet business, get in touch if you want to sponsor us. Yeah, that would be great. We could sponsor this particular section.
Like that.
a vape shop would be canny because I actually picked this one out, Steve. I saw that and thought of you. I sometimes see the rather obscure things, and I thought, oh, there's Steve Hasty. But that was from me. This one from Jimmy Moore, pre-season Hasty.
Yep. Oh, hey, God, chased something very similar to that around bloody Jasmine Dean many a time like that.
Keith Richardson sent this one in. Another bad hair day for Steve Hasty.
Which is every day, by the way.
And a front cover. You made it on the front cover of the Daily Choi.
Dear me. That's got me baffled, that one.
That was Ringo Piles. I've got no idea what he'd sent us that for. This is simply the best Steve Hasty lookalike I've seen, says Gareth.
Gareth, he needs some new glasses.
The drugs, Gareth, drugs.
Don't forget, Steve Hasty is the truth from San Andreas. Grand Theft Auto, Steve.
Oh, dear.
I'm glad about me, like.
You're now a computer graphic. Well, all I can say is Steve.
Well... Einstein meets who? Marilyn Monroe.
Goldman's sister from EastEnders and Steve Hasty had a kid together.
Oh, God.
Too much thought gone into that, Steve.
Oh, absolutely. God, dear me.
Spotted Steve Hasty today in the queue at the Turkish barber, says Chris O'Neill.
That was straight after I got stuck in the, where was it? Pacific Ocean.
And Rita, as you always know, likes to send in not 1, not 2, but 3.
Yeah. Right.
No apology this week, Steve, from Rita.
Oh, no, I didn't expect one.
A present from Albert.
Yes, according to him, a present for Keith.
A present for Keith, who's not here. Kipper McFish says, great to see Steve Hasty on tour with The Who.
Yep. Closer than you think, that one.
And the Ronnie Gill talking crap as usual. It was the Hasty they went to see and were blown away. Must have been on the beans.
Absolutely.
Not bad getting compared to rock stars.
Exactly, aye.
Chipper brings you back down to earth. What is Steve doing here, he says?
Chipper, man, away. Keep it calm.
He does. A hasty side-on shot from Chipper as well.
Probably right.
And Barbie's on its way. He says Hasty's all dolled up for the premiere.
This is what I was waiting for. I knew these were coming.
From Jacob.
Just knew they were coming.
This one was a late one from Billy Gibson.
What the hell?
And I thought I'd put this in, Steve, because we know you take the jokes well. And I did see this post that was put up by you, mate. There's your little fella.
That's right. That's Spencer.
That was your dog. There's Spencer. So I saw your tweet and I thought it's nice to be able to pay a little bit of respect to your dog. Tim Cairns, Sinner lookalike.
Oh,
And I had these sent in. If it was Harry Kane being the love child of Haley, Joel Osment, and Bruce Forsyth.
Christ.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a bit too complicated, that one. Like.
It is,
That's
Yeah,
like-
he then did this from 100% Mads.
Jesus.
Super Mac and
Yeah.
Super Mac and Engelbert Humperdinck creates Andy Carroll. So yeah, we had some weird ones. This is Billy Gibson as well. Me on me stag do. Bought by a West Ham fan. Forgot to share. Toon lookalike. I guess I look like a number 2. He says.
Poor
Yeah.
How long did the itch take to recede?
George Michael and Stephen Hendry from Chris O'Neill.
At the minute, yes, aye.
Richard Keys, step aside. There's a new Hezbollah doppelganger in town.
Oh,
Mitch with his hat last week.
Fantastic.
It's a good one. And Bo Derek and Haaland.
aye. Dear me.
John Joe Shelby, well done on winning Wimbledon's women's final.
Yeah, he did well, didn't he?
And Mitch or Elton John, who wore it better?
Me, obviously.
Definitely, Mitch.
One for Ask George. Is green still his favourite colour? And how old was he when he appeared in The Wizard of Oz? And Gary Neville working at Wetherspoons.
Aye.
Wow, that's superb, that.
It is, yeah.
Roy Hodgson and Sean Connery soaking up the sun together. We've seen the Roy Hodgson one, but they've now got the Sean Connery guy in there.
Never seen the show before.
That is very good. Lookalike Jordan Pickford. And that one's brilliant.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
definitely. That's what happens when
Brian-
you scrape the mold off the jam.
Brian Harmon and Ricky Poynton. This is Jason.
That is
Not
spooky,
far
that, isn't it?
away. Yeah, not far away.
Punting.
And American actor Aldous Hodge and ASM.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, see that.
Mitch from Dougie Morris.
See that.
And Stu Penman.
End of the Grand Theft Auto.
And again, Vintage Hasty and Burra Mag. Bambalaham. And Mitch again. Great costume. Where did you get it, Steve?
Fantastic. Amazon.
Amazon. Toon lookalike Father Gomez from his Dark Materials in Tenali.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a couple from Tom Dixon. Jens Lehmann and Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford and Ivanovic.
Seen that one before. Yeah.
It's a good one, that, though.
Jordan Henderson and the kid off Hollyoaks.
Aye.
Kieran Richardson and Jordan Henderson. That's not Kieran Richardson and Jordan
That's not,
Henderson.
it's Benitez and Peter Kane.
It's at the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Reading the name. Klopp and Hartley Hare from Pipkins. Another one of George when he used to be on Crackerjack.
Yeah.
Again.
Drag.
Sid the Sexist and Dean Saunders.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Keith and a guy off Find It, Fix It, Flog It.
He would as well,
Yeah.
wouldn't
Write it. Write the letter.
Mitch.
Yes.
And is that Mitch right on your Insta photo? Harry Seacombe. You're getting compared to
Yes. Take that one. Take that one, mate.
now. Bruce and the pig from Pipkins, says Rita. Pipkins get a hammer in this week. David from World on Fire and Fabian Scher.
That is good.
Not bad. Not
That was
bad.
very-
Saudi Amigos. Just another one of those
Hey,
Albert creations. Okay, top three. Anthony Gordon and Johnny Lawrence from Karate Kid.
Aye, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
like it.
Wow.
Seen
Yeah.
Number two,
Sharing it.
Oh, dear me.
thanks, Tom. The winner this week, Casemiro and Nate from Ted Lasso. Will Watson, Will Watson's the winner this week. Brilliant
Very
stuff.
good,
Some great
very-
lookalikes there. Thank you for.
Casemiro looks he's been at the pies all the summer, doesn't he?
He does. He definitely does.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm just-
that's the end of two lookalikes for this week. Thanks for sending them. Oh, which way do we go? But we'll go with Sir Monkey Sue first. He said, I've got an interesting question. He says, with our fan base, once ASM is gone, do you feel like a section will try to find the next player to jump on or scapegoat? Our fan base tend to do that on social media. Scapegoats, Mitch, they've always been part of football terrace religion, I guess. People have always had a
We've done it
scapegoat.
long before social media. It used to be left fullbacks. In my memory, it was always the left back that used to get the shit all the way through the 80s and early
Mark
90s.
Stinson,
Yeah,
Ray Ranson,
you know he was right back. But
but he was a
Bailey,
full-back.
'cause
He got some stick.
Bailey was at the end of his career. Who was the ginger-haired Scottish lad?
Paul Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, another one. And, you know, it was just never ending.
Wayne
It was
Faraday.
he had the absolute speed of Alan Wells, and he had
Rob
the absolute
McDonald.
ball Wayne Faraday had the speed of Alan Wells and the ball control of Alan Wells. That was the problem with Wayne Faraday. Honestly, he's the reason they put the gates on the bloody ends of the ground. Yeah, look, we've always done it. It isn't always, for me, the player it should be. For some reason, we'll latch on to the player who doesn't seem to be doing what they should, doesn't seem to be living up to expectation. We jumped all over Warren Barton, and bless him, he was able to turn it around.
Scott
But
Parker.
that doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Well, Scott Parker, I'd still jump all over me. I'm sorry, like used to take the groundsman 4 hours to unscrew him from the pitch after a game. But you know, we do seem to have this ability to find someone to blame repeatedly for feelings that aren't necessarily theirs.
John Cornwell.
And are we unusual to other fan bases for this? I just don't know. I don't know how other fan bases work. You know, I've just always worked within ours that there always seems to be someone who gets the terrorist shite, whether it's their fault or not necessarily. Yeah, possibly for France, God, to be fair.
Healy.
You know,
Healy, yeah.
but I'd like this. I'd love to interact with it, maybe other fan bases to a point where to say, are you the same as us? Do you jump all over somebody and then turn around in the hindsight and go, actually, it wasn't really that bad, to be fair. You know, it was circumstance, it was whatever was going on, and they got all the shit for everybody else. I don't think it's unique to social media. I think social media magnifies it. I think social media creates environments where people can throw stones from behind anonymity and feel like they can get away with it. I still think social media creates an environment where people feel they can say something that they wouldn't come up to you in the pub and say to your face. Because if they did come up to you in the pub and say it to your face, you'd probably take that bloody nose off. I think that's a different conversation. I think we are prone to finding scapegoats within a squad. I think we've always done it, in my experience, from the first time I was aware of a player getting getting dogs abuse and wondering why, or giving dogs abuse to a player myself without even thinking about why. I think we've all been there. I don't necessarily think we're unique for that.
Yeah, Sean Longstaff's got a mention there from Jody Toon for Life. It's a good point that I've heard a lot of people criticising Sean Longstaff. He says it will be Sean Longstaff and Joe Willock. He says as some fans will compare them to Bruno and Tonali. He says all fan bases do it. We just see it because it's our club, which is pretty much the same as, you know, what I've said about social media. You know, we often question, well, do Manchester United or Manchester City fans have a go at each other on Twitter? Well, yeah, they do. It's just we're not on their timelines. George, it's part and parcel of it, unfortunately, isn't it? There's always going to be a scapegoat.
Always has been, sadly, even as far back as when I was around at St James's. You know, there was lads who were crucified, and to the point where the club moved them on as much for their own protection as anything else.
It used to be Joe Linton, George, didn't it? Joe Linton was getting...
Well, when he came, I mean, yeah, well, oh, goodness gracious. I'm sitting here and when I come home from the match and I used to go on it about Joe Linton, my Marge used to sit in that chair and say to me, hey, that poor lad, you never leave him alone, you know. Because I used to say to her, that's one stripper not at the wash because he's never done anything. He can't be bloody sweating. And, you know, that's the kind of thing he used to get off me. To see what he's doing now, I'm absolutely... in awe of the lad of what he's done. Yes, Eddie Howe's put the ideas there, but it wouldn't have worked if he hadn't bought into it. So yeah, I'm trying to think of others from either I can remember. Well, young ones who came from our juniors, like Jackie Bell. I don't know if any of you lads can remember Jackie Bell. Played in midfield, came from the juniors, was with the FA Youth Cup winning team. Had a fantastic career, but at Norwich, Newcastle United, and in one of the first players to play a full career, and was a diabetic. You know, he used to have insulin before he did anything. Ken Hale, another great little player who's coached by none other than Jackie Milburn. Ken had a couple of poor games and then got the battered every time he touched the ball, poor lad, and he ended up going to. He had a full career, but at Bury, when Bury were quite a good club, and others like that. So yeah, it's always been around, and that it always will be, sadly. The other thing that intrigues me is that fans don't seem to get it in the head. If they turn it on its head and actually supported a player, what an uplift it would be, and they could save careers and make careers, in my opinion. And it's always been around and always will be. It's some of the names that are going up there, yes, they did get hammered, but some more than others, sadly. And as I say, the two I've mentioned are people I actually remember playing with, and was in awe of them when I played, because there were a couple of generations above me and in the first team when I was in the juniors, but a couple of bad games and that was it. You know, it was set for life. They could, as soon as they approached the Gallagher corner, you could hear the rumbles, you know. And as I say, the club moved them on as much to protect them as anything else. So, but it'll always be the same. There'll be Sean Longstaff was a good call. I mean, he did go from overnight hero to pantomime villain, and just like that. And now we know the truth. Part of that was because of the attitude of the stupid bloody manager we had. But it could have ended Sean's career, and of course Matty's with him as well. So yes, there's a modern one which sticks out like a sore thumb. But was
Marcelino's another one. Tim
absolutely.
Marcelino, I slagged them off walking through Phoenix men's section. Lazy git, he says. Some players get away with murder because they put a shift in, says the mighty Win. Billy Whitehurst shut the Gallagher up with 2 fingers, yes. He did tell a story. He came back into the talk-in for me and apologised to the supporters, but he did say that he'd been spat on, and that was the reason he was sticking his fingers up at people who spat on him. down that tunnel. Anyway, that stumps in the cricket. 113 for 4 on day 3. Australia 162 runs behind. Day 4 tomorrow. Let's hope there's not much rain. England can do the job that they've set out to achieve today so fantastically well. Steve, then scapegoats. There's been a few. The names are getting mentioned in the chat. I think Dan Burn gets a bit of stick, and there's a lot of focus on that left back position. You'd think he'd become a bad player over the 6 weeks break, but the way that some people are going on, and having retrospective memories. Christ, we got to the Champions League and we got to the League Cup final. Dan Burn had a bloody great season, but suddenly people are now questioning him and starting to wax lyrical about players they've probably never seen play before. And saying, we've got to get him, without really thinking about, maybe Dan Burn might be in the starting 11 on the first game of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Collectively, we had a fantastic season, but for some reason we have to single people out in a negative way. I mean, let's face it, the East Stand, the West Stand paddock, as we used to call it, the Milburn, was a graveyard for footballers, graveyard for people who played wide. As was the benches in the East Stand, the paddock before that, and then the benches. You just saw players' careers just crumble because of the stick they used to get. But it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we're talking about club heroes earlier, and now we're talking about players who got stick. But if we were down the road, 15 miles away, their heroes seem to come after they've left the club. Isn't it interesting? All of a sudden, Pickford's a hero. All of a sudden, Jordan Henderson's a hero, soon to become an anti-hero, believe it or not. And that it's weird that they were never, they left under a cloud, got slagged off when they went because they got relegated, and Sunderland took the money and they took the money, and they went for 20 million and 25 million respectively. Now they're heroes, never heroes in the red and white shirt. We have heroes that wore the black and white shirt. That's the difference between us and them at the moment. I think they're struggling to remember the names of their squad, never mind the heroes. But it's strange, isn't it? We've always had fickle fans. We've always had people who go to basically exhaust all that angst that they've built up over the week, and they take it out on a particular player. And there was all sorts of names bandied around there. The one that also came into my mind was Stewie Barraclough. You often find as well that when a player had replaced somebody else for a spell, then all of a sudden the memory of that other player suddenly came back to.
Well, definitely a club where if somebody sits on the bench for long enough to become a better player.
Yes. Yes. But, and then all of a sudden, you've been sitting on the bench too long. You've taken the money. You've done now. You cannot win. You cannot win.
And there's good examples of how our crowd, of course, have influenced opposition players to the point where they didn't like come to St James's Park. The most famous of the lot, of course, is Stanley Matthews. He hated playing at St James's Park because he felt that the crowd was too close to the pitch. And when he took a corner on either side of the field, he used to get the lickings of a dog. I mean, I remember being there with the family, and he came to take a corner at the Gallagher corner. And that day, he had a horse running at Newcastle, and he made a rick of the corner. And as he was going away from the corner, they were all shouting, and your bloody horse is lost as well, Stan. He hated St James's Park. So,
Yeah, you also get instances as well of if you've got a young player who's not being selected, and you've got an older player who's been there, has been established for a long time, all of a sudden you want the new young player in, and you want the old player got rid of. You want him; his legs have gone. You got to move him on. You bring the youngster in as a perfect example, and then he plays 4 games, and then people go, "Oh, he's crap." Him. Who was screaming for him? He scored a good goal in the cup, and all of a sudden he was going to be an absolute world beater. This happens time and time and time again, and I'm sure it is. I'm sure it does happen at other football clubs. In fact, it certainly does happen at other football clubs. You hear it about Man United players I remember being at Man United, and I actually sat in the Stretford end for a game against Newcastle. It was the only ticket I could get. And I was in with a contingent of Man United Irish fans, and they have a section in the top corner there, and they just spent the entire game slagging off Ryan Giggs. And it transpired the reason was because they wanted Keith Gillespie playing.
Yeah,
because they're from Ireland and they wanted to see Gillespie. And it's just like, what on earth, It's just one of those things. It took me by surprise, because at the time I thought that it perhaps was something that we only did, and I'd never sat in an away end and experienced the sort of vitriol that could be thrown at one of their own players, because I didn't hear it that much. You'd hear the odd boo in the Gallagher end about someone, or you have little, but not in a collective like that was, I mean, you're talking about hundreds of them, It was, but as I say, it was because that was the Irish section and they wanted an Irish player, and Ferguson wasn't picking him.
Yeah, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. I'm sure we'll find out in due course over the course of the season who is the next scapegoat. There certainly will be one. Kevin Dillon gets a mention. I've told the story many times on this podcast, but Kevin Dillon was the person who I put £1 on each time to get first goal for Newcastle United. Those statisticians out there will, of course, know that Kevin Dillon never actually scored for Newcastle. He then went and signed for Reading. I didn't put a bet on him scoring on his debut, and yep, you've guessed it, he scored on his debut for Reading. The useless git. I've got a couple of late. There's Chelsea Rob doing the delivery. Chelsea Rob was a wave. He was waving at George before. I did have a couple of. I mate you okay. I did get a couple of late lookalikes come in, which I don't want to keep till next week because they were rather good. Steve. This was from Stephen Kennedy. See, Steve Hastie's pulled Carol Vorderman. It's actually Penny Lancaster, but you're getting compared to Rod Stewart now, Steve.
Yeah.
This was also a late one from the North Tyne Cycle Social. Newest sign on the Coast Road Cycle and Pedestrian Bridge near Silverlink. Who is Hastie? The cycleway was opened by Hastie.
Hi.
Steve, was that you?
Not me. Oh, not me.
Somebody Bruce Willis.
Look like Steve.
This is probably the most weirdest lookalike you've ever had from Ian Hull. I am an electric bus.
Yeah.
Very good, Ian. Very good. I couldn't keep it till next week. And Mark Byers, who sends me quite a lot and is in the chat tonight, Mark knows that I do like to have a sing-along. So he sent me this. Singer Marty Pello, diagnosed with arthritis. He told our reporters, I feel it in my fingers. I feel it in my toes. Thank you, Mark. There you go. I hope that was. I hope you enjoyed that bit of serenading everybody as well.
I can sympathise with that one.
I did get this as well, Bill. I think we might keep this maybe for Sunday's show, because those of you who were demanding that the professionals extend to an hour and a half, well, we've agreed.
You'll need it for this one.
Sunday's show is going to be an hour and a half. So, Bill, send your question in about financial fair play, and we'll have a chat about that on Sunday, because ultimately, from our perspective, it is something I think as fans who maybe don't understand the financial implications, why selling St. Maximin can mean that we can spend a little bit more money. It is something we can go over. We'll do that on Sunday. We'll start with that on the Sunday show. I have got Liam Kennedy on tomorrow as well at 10 o'clock in the morning. Were you going to say something, Mitch?
No.
I was going to say.
I'll just buy an abacus and I'll get like a blackboard and it's do some homework.
More names of people who got on the wrong side of fans. Michael Owen, of course, I mean, injuries curtailed his career at Newcastle, plus the fact he didn't actually want to be here didn't help. Dyer used to get a load of stick from sections of the crowd. I thought he was frighteningly good on his day. Yeah, Mark, I mentioned that earlier about Dyer, but he's very like ASM. Injuries curtailed him. He played in an era as well where I don't think there was as much understanding of, players that played with pace and how to treat them. And I think if Dyer played now, with his pump, it might have been a little bit different. And again,
Bellamy was another one.
Yeah. Dave says you've got to admit we have had some crap players. Yes, Dave, there's no doubt.
True. Every team, yeah.
Bruce out and Ashley out, says Geordie Timberlake. Bruce out, everybody saying that in the midst of the passing of our good friend Stu. Billy Trey says, did Wayne Faraday eventually stop running in the wrong direction? I did have a good chat with Wayne Faraday recently. I have tried to get him on the show. I think he's a little reticent about coming on. I think he thinks he's just going to get hammered and given a load of stick, but he's actually a really nice guy. It would be good to get him on. We had Rob McDonald on here a couple of years ago, which you can find.
Don't play what I said about earlier today.
Darren Bradshaw, there's a good scapegoat, says Mark. Tony Cunningham, another one. Barry says Dyer's attitude stunk and behaviour to Robson. Can't stand the sight of the guy as well. So yeah, that really did cause some great debates tonight, guys. Some really good chat, as always. And I guess we've got to look forward to this American trip now as well. So we'll probably have some updates from Kev, who's in Atlanta, who will enjoy himself, I'm sure, and be able to give us a little bit of an insight in what is going on. Anyway, Julie, if you are in the chat, I haven't let you down this week. You mean Eddie and Dan haven't told you who they've lined up? I'm shocked, as I thought you knew everything concerning NUFC. Weasel. Wow. Weasel. I've never been called a weasel. But there we go. First time for everything.
I think we're getting from Jimmy as well, won't we? Jimmy Moore and Mark Byers. They're both over there for the games. So yeah. We'll get some contrasting opinions, I'm sure, from the three of them.
Yep.
Yeah. I do want to thank New Workwear, who've been the kind sponsors of the show for the last couple of months. They're going to have a month's break because they don't do much business in August. I think they're going to be back at the start of the season in the fall, as they would call it in America. So we'll play this one last time for now. Mark Bayer says he's flying out to meet the legendary Jimmy Moore in Atlanta next Wednesday. Wish me luck. You'll enjoy it. And I know I can see you in the chat, mate. Sadly, Stu Flyboy Ray passed away, mate. We give him a tribute at the start of the show, mate. But he had a lung condition, and Paul from Toon Review let us know earlier by text. So this show is dedicated to Stu. Fly high, Flyboy. Thanks, lads. Great to see you. Good to see you, Mitch. Good to see you, George. Good to see you, Steve. Have a great weekend. Mitch, I will see you at 6 o'clock on Sunday, and I'll see George and Steve for Geordie's here. Geordie's there on Wednesday. Take care, guys.
Okay.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great weekend. And I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock with Liam Kennedy.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.